In 1984, Pontiac introduced one of the most talked about new cars, the Fiero. A year later, the Fiero received a slight facelift, some additional power in the form of a V6, and donned the name Fiero GT. That same year, Revell released their 1/24 scale version of the Pontiac Fiero GT. More show, more go, more wing, more zing. In 2025, Revell have re-released the Fiero kit, same as it was released back in the 80s. Let's take a journey back in time and build this iconic mid-engine, American-made, affordable sports car. We'll start off with prepping the body. There aren't too many mold lines, but there are a few spots where the panel lines can be evened up a little to ensure a decent shine. Using 1000 grit sandpaper, we can smooth everything out. A scriber is then used to deepen the panel lines to help achieve the look of separate body panels of a full-size car. The kit did come with intake vents on both sides of the car, but the full-size car only had the intake on one side. We will fill in the intake panel with some Tamiya putty, and when it's dry, give it a good sanding. To help ensure a smooth surface, some Mr. Hobby Mr. Surfacer 500 is then used to fill in any small imperfections the putty may have left. That too is sanded smooth using 1000 grit sandpaper. The inserts are then glued into place on the body. I figured the front intake would look a little better if it was cut out. This ended up taking a little longer than anticipated, but I think it adds to the look of the car when completed instead of it just being painted black. Kaliedo has been making a lot of noise about their new paints, and so I thought I would take a look at what all the hubbub was about. I purchased their ProMaster Auto Color series, which consists of 24 auto colors, 12 metallic colors, and 8 of their primary colors: white, black, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. All the paints are gloss. The set also comes with several of their primers and clear coats including gloss, semi-gloss, and matte. I did purchase this set myself, and so any thoughts or opinions are my own and are not sponsored in any way. If anyone knows what the little gray plastic pieces are that come in the set, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I have no idea. My first observation is that I really don't like the cap on the larger bottles. Since I tend to be quite frugal with my paint, I like to use just drops at a time in my airbrush. The Vallejo cap allows me to put a drop or a very slight squeeze of paint into the cup of my airbrush, but the Kaliedo cap is a little more finicky. Trying to tip the bottle into the cap can lead to dribbles on the outside of the cup, and squeezes end up being a big jet of paint. Yeah, a slight quibble, but my quibble nonetheless. I like what I like. Using the primer straight out of the bottle is no problem. The gray sprays on light at first, but does darken up a little as it dries. After using Vallejo primer for about a year now, it is awesome that this primer does not clog up the nozzle at all. Even without any paint retarder, I had no issues with it drying in the airbrush itself. Again, using the paint straight out of the bottle for the base coat is no problem. The paint goes on nicely and evenly. I did put a second layer on a little heavy, and ended up with a few runs, especially on the rear deck, which was held upright while drying instead of flat as it should have been. A little sanding, and it should be fine before final clear coats. I found the gray was quite different from the red. The gray was more liquid and pulled back from the panel lines and gave odd coverage. A second and third coat of the gray did eventually give me good coverage. My favorite part, pulling off the tape. Were we successful or not? The tape held pretty good for the most part, and there were only a few spots where the gray seeped under the tape slightly. Again, a little light sanding should help clean that up before a clear coat. After taping up the body a second time, the side molding can be painted. This time using an X1 Tamiya gloss to see how it adheres to the Kaliedo paints. After another satisfying tape removal session, all is good. No runs, and it holds to the red without any issues. We can tape up the car for a third time and paint the window trim and rear trunk area with Tamiya X18 Semigloss Black. In the meantime, the rear deck lid does need some sanding to take down those runs, and then a coat of red is applied again. After sanding the gray runs, a little of the original red paint is applied just to even everything out. We will be trying out the gloss coat that came with the set and see how it holds up. I have high expectations now that I've used the base colors and everything went well. We will apply 2 coats of the clear right out of the bottle. A light coat and then a slightly heavier coat. After that, we will add a third coat using a mix of 1-to-1 paint and thinner. This should give us a little more time for the clear to level out after applying it. One more coat is laid down once the third layer has dried a little, and this last layer we will thin 1-to-2, paint to thinner. This should give us a nice looking smooth glossy finish. And now we reach the scariest part of the painting process, sanding. After letting the paint dry for a few days, I decided to not be super aggressive with the clear coat just in case it was really soft, and so I hit it with some 4000 grit wet sanding. The clear responded to the sandpaper better than expected and sanded quite well, but I noticed that even with 4 layers of clear, it was pretty thin in a lot of spots, and the 4000 grit was definitely hitting the red gloss in a few places. Because of this, I didn't sand it too much with the 4000, and was also quite gentle with the 6000, 8000, and the 10,000. After sanding, I hit it with some Tamiya finishing polishing compound, and it accepted that quite well also. While the results were not completely what I am used to when it comes to a glass-like finish, it was quite decent considering I was lighter to the touch with the sanding. I am looking forward to trying this clear again, but maybe applying a few more heavier coats of the gloss before doing the thin layers. After we are done with the polishing, some panel line wash can be used. I am not a fan of using black wash as I find it's a little too harsh, so I'm using a gray wash here for a more subtle effect. Some black wash is used in the side vent. This will give us a great outline so that we can paint the vent with some semi-gloss black without being worried about paint going in places that we don't want it to go. Use the semi-gloss black to paint inside the lines of the panel wash for a clean-looking intake. There was a spot on the roof that needed a slight touch-up where the sanding and polishing went through to the primer. A little paint from the bottle into a dish, and then using a paintbrush we can paint away that blemish. What I found very interesting here is that the clear did not alter the color of the red. When using the Mr. Super Clear, I find it tends to make the body color a little darker than when first applied. In this instance, the red from the bottle dried into a nice gloss and was hardly noticeable without any kind of magnification. So that is my test of the new Kaliedo paints. I think they are quite good for water-based acrylics, and I look forward to trying out more of the colors on future builds. Will I replace all my Tamiya paints with Kaliedo? I don't think so at the moment, but I definitely will be using these more for certain projects. I want to see if they hold up using lacquer clear coats and maybe even a 2K clear coat as well. Have you tried these paints yet? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. So now we will continue with our standard building process. All the chassis parts are covered in Vallejo primer, and then some additional colors are used for contrast. Aluminum for the engine. Gunmetal for a few mechanical parts, wheel backs, and the exhaust manifold. Silver is used for the muffler and exhaust system. We can hand paint a few parts. Rubber black can be used for boots and fan belts. The kit comes with stock Fiero wheel covers, but I was wanting something a little more custom. I found some BBS rims in the parts box and thought they would work perfectly. The spokes of the rims are painted gold. Then panel line wash is used to fill in behind the spokes to make it look like they are open. Just a word of caution, you do need to put enough wash into the space to be sure the entire bottom is covered to ensure it creates a nice black space. Otherwise, you get a little of the chrome in the middle and it just doesn't look right. Don't forget to do the center cap and show that cool BBS logo. When dry, you can press them right into the tires from the kit. The interior is not a lot of parts, but the level of detail is great. The two-part bucket seats can be glued together and the mold line sanded smooth. Everything is given a primer coat before the base coat. For the tan color, a Vallejo yellow ochre is used. After painting the yellow on the seats, I thought about doing something a little different. Mixing a little baby powder into some Tamiya tan should give us an effect that looks a lot like cloth. Then, masking the interior of the seat, we can do the same with a red brown from Tamiya and some baby powder to complete the look. Finally, some brown is used as an accent color on the interior and other accessories. The seat turned out looking great. Some carpet can be added by using some thinned down white glue in the areas that carpet is desired. Champagne embossing powder is then used to look like brown carpets. The powder is thin, so if you want a darker look, you can paint the areas in a brown color first. The dash and other areas are given an aluminum trim look to them with some brush painting. The gauges do come with decals, but they have some great details raised right in the gauge cluster and center console. With some panel wash, you can bring out those details really easily and give an extra detailed look to your interior. With that now finished, we should be ready for assembly. Starting with the engine, the valve covers can be added, and the belt assembly put onto the front of the engine. A coolant tube is then attached, and then the exhaust manifold is put into place. The distributor is put onto the back of the intake manifold, and then the air intake is glued to the top of the motor. For some extra detail, we can add some custom-made spark plug wires. Using 30-gauge wrapping wire, you can cut to a usable length. A little longer is better. Then a small portion of the casing is cut close to one end of the wire. The sheath should be able to be separated easily by pulling in one direction. Don't pull the sheath right off, we will need that end again in a moment. With the shorter bit of sheath, give it a 90-degree bend to simulate the connection to the distributor cap. Then snip off some of the excess sheath on the other end, and that will end up being our spark plug boot. If you are going to wire your engine, holes should be drilled in your distributor and your engine heads before painting. This way you don't risk scratching anything, trying to drill holes after your paint. When making the holes into the head, if you can drill right into the block, it is really helpful when you are wiring the spark plug side. With a little super glue in the hole of your distributor, you can carefully place your 90-degree bend into the top of the distributor. Once all the wires are glued into the distributor, you can then place the other end of the wire into the holes in your heads. Glue the sheath into the head, but make sure you don't get any glue onto the metal wire bit. Once everything is glued into place and your plug wires are at a length you are happy with, you can then pull the metal wire in, or out to lengthen or shorten the wire as desired. Bend and sculpt the wires into how you want them to look for their final appearance. Once everything is in the shape you are happy with, get a drop of paint, the color of your choice. It is best to use a flat or matte color as it will adhere better to the metal wire. Then using a toothpick, you can gently paint the wire that color. This paint is not durable at all, so any bending of the wires after you paint, and it will likely flake off, so be sure you have the shapes you desire before starting to paint the wires. Now we can begin the assembly of the chassis. The drive shafts are attached to the rear subframe and then placed into the chassis. For the front, we have a steering rack, a torsion bar, and then our front suspension assembly. Exhaust parts are carefully put into place around the rear subassembly. Some brown accent wash can be used to simulate the slight rust color you see around some exhausts. Wheels can then be snapped onto the suspension parts and our chassis is ready. The engine can then be placed carefully between the drive shafts and on its engine mounts. For the interior, assembly is really quick. Steering wheel to the dashboard. Seats are put in place. Then the dash is put into place. We can now put the glass into the body, and then the 3 sub-assemblies can be brought together. The rear deck can be put on, and then the side vents put in place to hold the deck in. Rear glass is put in, and then the rear bumper is glued in place. Before painting, the mirrors had pins put in to ensure proper placement, and a solid fit would ensure they are not easily knocked off later. After the final mirror is attached, you are done. Thank you so much for watching this build of the Revell Pontiac Fiero GT. It was a fun build, and I totally recommend getting one if you like this car and are a fan of the 80s. Many of the tools and supplies I used for this build are listed below. Click the link to the products on Amazon. As an affiliate, I do earn a small commission when you make a purchase. Thank you so much for your support. If you enjoyed this build, then hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want to see more builds in the Scale Auto Garage, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when new builds are uploaded. Keep on building, and we will see you next time.